You ever notice how being in a crowd doesn't always mean you're connected? There's a peculiar kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being unseen. You can sit in a bustling cafe, laugh at jokes, nod at conversations, and yet feel utterly invisible. Philosophers, poets, and thinkers have long whispered about this, that the human condition is not defined merely by solitude, but by the absence of genuine recognition. You see, most people are playing a role, wrapped tightly in masks that shield them from judgment, from discomfort, from the terrifying truth of their own emptiness. And when you stop playing your own role, when you begin to strip away the layers of performance, you begin to notice a reaction. It's subtle at first. Someone might glance at you and hesitate mid-sentence, their words faltering. Perhaps a friend grows quiet when you enter a room, or a colleague suddenly shifts their tone. You wonder, what did I do? Did I offend? But the answer is simple. Nothing. You are merely being. And being, when it is authentic, is disruptive. Your presence becomes a mirror, and mirrors can be uncomfortable. They show people what they don't wish to see, themselves. When you wake up to this truth, when you stop seeking approval, when the ego's constant need to measure and compare no longer guides your steps, you begin to move through life differently. There is a lightness, a freedom, a transparency that radiates without effort, and it rattles those still chained to the familiar game of appearances. They sense it instantly. Someone who is no longer performing threatens the fragile illusion that their lives are under control. This is where the loneliness begins to reveal itself in its most profound form. It is not a rejection by others, it is a reflection. Their discomfort is not about you, but about the fear, anxiety, and constant striving that resides within them. You may feel the pull to explain yourself, to justify your choices, to calm the unease you notice in others, but all explanation is futile. The moment you try to satisfy the world, you step back into the old patterns of ego, and the unique presence you carry dissolves. You become inconvenient, not by choice, but by necessity. Your freedom, your clarity, your refusal to conform is not a weapon. It is simply a state of being, and yet it triggers reactions, some subtle, some overt. People might test you to see if your peace is genuine. Old friends might poke at familiar wounds, colleagues may provoke you with minor irritations, family members could try to pull you back into their patterns. All of it stems from one truth. They are uncomfortable confronting the possibility that life could be lived differently, freer, lighter, more aware. And in this discomfort lies an incredible paradox. The very thing that isolates you, that makes you feel unseen, is the same thing that awakens curiosity, reflection, and possibility in those around you. The loneliness is not a punishment. It is a signal. It is the space where the genuine self emerges, stripped of expectation, stripped of obligation, stripped of the desperate need to fit in. You realize then, loneliness is not the absence of people, it is the presence of truth. Once you begin to live in this space, fully awake, fully present, the reactions of others intensify. People may start to gossip, not out of malice, but out of confusion. Your calm, your clarity, your absence of attachment to social games, they don't understand it, and their minds scramble to create a narrative. They tell themselves stories to explain you, to categorize you, to reduce the threat of your presence. She thinks she's better than us. He's changed, he's distant, he's cold. These stories are never about you. They are about their fear of change, their resistance to the unfamiliar, their ego's desperate need to define the world in familiar terms. And this is where your true power lies. You do not argue, you do not defend, you do not seek their approval. You simply continue to be. Like water flowing around stones, you move through the world without friction. The stones may grumble, they may resist, but the water keeps flowing, unstoppable. You realize that every challenge, every subtle provocation, every judgment cast in your direction is an opportunity to witness the game of ego without participating. Sometimes they will try to pull you back into old patterns, old friends, family members, colleagues. Anyone who knew you before your awakening might attempt to lure you into the roles you once played. They will bring up old memories, remind you of past grievances, or subtly invite you to react as you once did. They hope that by triggering the old version of you, they can reassert their control over the familiar narrative. But you have changed. You cannot step back into those costumes that no longer fit. You remain present, loving, compassionate, yet unshaken. Your refusal to comply is not rebellion, it is truth. And here is the subtle beauty of it. The more you embody this presence, the more contagious it becomes. Presence is not loud, it does not seek recognition, yet its quiet force is undeniable. People feel it. Some will be drawn to it, inspired to seek their own freedom. Others will resist, retreat, or lash out. Both reactions are part of the unfolding. Both are reflections of the ego trying to protect itself from the unknown. Your awakening, your clarity, your authenticity, they are not about making others change. They are not about proving a point. They are about walking through life fully awake, offering a living example that another way is possible. That freedom exists. That peace can be real. And in this way, you teach without speaking, without judgment, without coercion. You teach simply by being. Sometimes it can feel isolating. The loneliness can seem heavy. People you once connected with may drift away, unable to cope with your new way of being. But this is not loss. It is natural. It is the universe recalibrating, creating space for those who are ready to engage with the truth you carry. You learn to hold compassion for those who resist. You learn that forcing anyone to wake up is futile. All you can do is remain awake yourself. And here's a profound realization. The discomfort others feel in your presence is a reflection, not a judgment. They are encountering a mirror of their own untamed mind, their own unexamined life, their own egoic attachments. You are not the cause of their unease. You are simply a clear lens showing what is already there. And this realization frees you from the need to defend, justify, or explain yourself. You move in peace, unbothered by the noise around you, aware that the only true work is within. Over time, the loneliness transforms. It is no longer a wound. It becomes a space, a quiet garden, untouched by the noise of the world. You begin to see that the loneliness was never about lack, it was preparation. It was the silence needed for you to hear your own voice. And once you hear it, truly hear it, the world can never drown it out again. This is the deepest secret philosophers have always pointed to. Freedom does not come from being understood by others. Freedom comes from understanding oneself. And when you reach this point, something astonishing happens. You begin to attract different people, souls that resonate, hearts that feel, minds that question. Not the ones clinging to masks, but the ones who seek to remove them. People who see through illusion, people who value silence, depth, presence. They are rare, but they exist. When they find you, it is not through noise or show, it is through recognition. They see you with the same clarity with which you see them. And this kind of connection is not common, it is sacred. You start to realize that you were never meant for the masses, not because you're superior, but because your frequency is not tuned to superficiality. You are tuned to truth, depth, consciousness, and those aligned with that will find their way to you. The loneliness was a bridge, a necessary transition, the cocoon before the flight. Every internal silence sharpened your vision. Every moment of being unseen by others brought you closer to being seen by yourself. And that is the most important recognition a human being can ever have, to be fully visible to your own awareness. You become the observer. You see life happening, people performing, egos interacting like characters in a play, and you no longer feel the need to join. You choose where to invest your energy. You begin to speak less, because every word you speak now has weight. You listen more, because silence holds more truth than arguments ever could. And in this stillness, you realize there are only two kinds of people: those who fear silence and those who have made peace with it. People will continue to misunderstand you, but misunderstanding will no longer injure you, because you do not derive your identity from their perception. You have become internally whole, and once you become whole, nobody can take that from you. This is the ultimate form of freedom, to exist without needing permission, to be yourself without requiring validation, to walk your path even when nobody walks beside you. And here is the final revelation. The loneliness that once hurt becomes your sanctuary. The silence that once frightened you becomes your meditation. And the emptiness that once felt like a threat becomes the space through which life flows effortlessly. You no longer seek to belong. You no longer seek to fit in. You belong to yourself. You fit into your own soul. That is when you understand. The most powerful humans are not loud. They are quiet. They are not desperate to be seen. They are grounded. They do not chase attention. They radiate presence. These are the ones who change the world, not through force, but through alignment, not through noise, but through awareness. So, yes, loneliness can feel heavy. Yes, awakening can feel like isolation. But that isolation is not the end, it is the beginning. The space where your true self begins to breathe. The moment where you stop fearing the silence and finally begin to listen. And when the world no longer sees you, you finally see yourself.